What if violence could be choreographed like dance? Brutal, elegant, unforgettable. John Wick, Chapter 5 turns chaos into art, directed by Stahelski, the man who made action speak. No green screens, no shortcuts, just pure, handcrafted mayhem. This is where action becomes poetry, and John Wick is its deadliest poet. How do you choreograph chaos and still make it look like art? That's the question that John Wick, Chapter 5, answers with brutal elegance. From the very first frame, this film doesn't just drop you into a world of assassins. It throws you into a ballet of violence where every move is calculated, every blow has weight, and every fall hurts. This isn't your typical action blockbuster filled with flashy explosions and forgettable CGI. No, this is John Wick, a franchise built on pain, precision, and poetry, where the choreography isn't just part of the action, it is the story. The fifth chapter of the John Wick saga carries the weight of an entire legacy. Since 2014, audiences have been mesmerized by Keanu Reeves, stoic killer, who says little but moves like a ghost in war. What began with the murder of a dog and the theft of a car has now evolved into a cinematic phenomenon. But it is not just the revenge plot that brought people back again and again. It's the choreography, the sheer physical storytelling told through every blocked punch, every flip, every empty magazine ejected with the same grace as a ballet dancer's spin. And at the center of it all stands Stahelski, a former stuntman, once the stunt double for Neo in The Matrix, now the visionary director behind a revolution in action cinema. Stahelski didn't come to Hollywood to follow the rules. He came to rewrite them. In an industry bloated with green screens, jump cuts, and shaky cam, Stahelski brought back craft. With Chapter 5, he doubles down. No over-reliance on visual effects, no faked motion, just real stuntmen, real choreography, real bruises. Each fight is a masterclass in spatial awareness, timing, and physical storytelling. One moment, John Wick is sliding across the hood of a car with a Glock in each hand. The next, he's using nunchaku in a narrow hallway, his movements flowing like water but hitting like steel. The choreography in this film isn't just physical, it's emotional, a language spoken through violence, pain, and persistence. We open with a bang, not a literal one, but a cinematic one. The first montage is a blur of motion, Wick's face bloodied but focused, gun-fu sequences blending martial arts with firearm handling in perfect harmony, a rooftop silhouetted fight bathed in neon light, and then silence. A single frame of Keanu standing still, breathing hard, the chaos around him frozen. That's not just action, that's rhythm, that's control, that's Stahelski's design. Behind the scenes, we glimpse Stahelski not yelling but guiding, choreographing fights like a conductor directs an orchestra. He works closely with Keanu, both men immersed in movement theory, fight timing, weapon transitions. Their dynamic isn't actor-director, it's athlete-coach, dancer-choreographer, warrior mastermind. There's a moment in the BTS footage where Chad adjusts the timing of a move by half a second, and suddenly, the entire flow of the scene changes. That's how precise these fights are. It's not random violence, it's storytelling without dialogue. The real twist. It's not just the stunts that are real, it's the emotion. In every punch John Wick throws, there's grief. In every bullet dodge, there's exhaustion. This choreography isn't meant to look clean, it's meant to look earned. By Chapter 5, Wick isn't just a killer. He is a man who has survived more than any human should, and his fights reflect that. They are heavier, slower in moments, more desperate, but still impossibly graceful. The violence has matured. It's not about spectacle anymore, it's about legacy. And so we arrive at the core of this film's brilliance. It understands that choreography is more than just movement. It's memory. Every spin, every takedown, every bullet is a callback to earlier chapters, earlier styles, earlier wounds. Wick fights like a man carrying 1,000 ghosts. And the choreography carries them too. John Wick. Chapter 5 isn't just another sequel. It is the culmination of a movement, a cinematic commitment to the idea that action can be intelligent, poetic, and profoundly human. As the camera pulls back from the first sequence, the message is clear. We're not watching an action movie. We're watching a beautifully orchestrated war dance, helmed by the only man who could choreograph it, Chad Stahelski, the artist of agony. As the dust settles from that opening barrage of violence, one thing becomes immediately clear. John Wick has changed. Not just the man, but the method. The choreography of pain we witnessed in Chapter 1 was sharp, simple, and brutal. But by the time we arrive at Chapter 5, that raw aggression has evolved into something far more refined, far more complex, and infinitely more cinematic. What began as clean takedowns and headshots in dim-lit corridors has transformed into sweeping rooftop brawls in glowing neon cities, multi-layered combat sequences in sacred temples, and hand-to-hand duels on moving vehicles. But make no mistake, while the scale has grown, the commitment to realism has never wavered. Stahelski doesn't believe in shortcuts, not for the audience, not for the actors, and certainly not for himself. Where most modern action films chase spectacle through digital trickery, John Wick fights to keep it physical. Practical effects aren't just a preference, they're a philosophy. Every punch is thrown by real arms, every roll is absorbed by real bones, and every hit carries real weight. You can feel it. The grunts, the missteps, the blood splatter. It all lands because it was earned on set, not generated in post-production. In a powerful split-screen comparison, you see the contrast. John Wick 1, close quarters, 2-second kill shots, grounded moves. Chapter 5, expansive, fluid, but somehow just as intimate. On one side, Keanu dispatching enemies in a narrow nightclub corridor. On the other, he's battling 5 foes across a massive rooftop garden in Japan, seamlessly transitioning between judo throws, tactical reloads, and knee strikes. The choreography has grown up, matured. It doesn't just kill fast, it kills smart. Cut to behind the scenes. Chad Stahelski adjusting Keanu's wrist placement in a gun disarm drill. The stunt team repeating a throw 20 times until the timing is perfect. Keanu practicing reloads until he can swap mags blindfolded. This is the kind of dedication rarely seen in Hollywood, where actors don't just memorize moves, they embody martial systems. Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Silat, Gun Fu. Stahelski's hybrid creation that fuses firearm accuracy with close-quarters combat. It's not just choreography, it's combat design. And in the slow-motion breakdowns, you see it in brutal clarity. The way Wick adjusts his footing mid-strike to create balance. The micro-delays between dodges, simulating real human reactions. The intentional breath pauses between exchanges. They don't just sell realism, they tell a story. These are the nuances that set John Wick apart from its imitators. Hollywood might still favor massive CGI battlefields and one-man army tropes, but Wick's world feels like a chessboard where every move costs something: blood, breath, bones. And that's the real evolution. The shift from flashy action to earned action, from filler fight scenes to emotionally loaded encounters, from scripted violence to living, breathing motion. Chad Stahelski understands something fundamental, that good action doesn't just look cool. It has to mean something. It has to echo through the bones of the character, the frame, the story. So as we move forward in Chapter 5's journey, from the rooftops of Japan to the underground fight pits of Berlin, one thing remains constant. The action keeps evolving, but never at the cost of truth. And that truth lies in every cracked rib, every blood-soaked punch, every silent pause before the next round begins. Now let's slow it all down. Not the action, but our lens. Because if there is one sequence in John Wick Chapter 5 that demands to be dissected frame by frame, it's the battle inside the Osaka Continental. This isn't just an action scene, it's a masterclass in cinematic discipline, a live-action ballet where every strike, step, and camera movement has been rehearsed to perfection. The fight begins not with a bang, but with tension, a silence broken by footsteps on polished floors. The camera glides through the minimalist architecture, Japanese elegance clashing with incoming chaos. What makes this scene stand out isn't just the violence, it is the clarity of violence. Stahelski doesn't cut away from the action, he invites you in. Long fluid tracking shots follow Keanu as he flows from assailant to assailant like a predator through brush. There's no shaky cam, no disorienting edit jumps, because when the choreography is this good, you want the audience to see it all. Let us zoom into a moment. Wick flips a blade out of an enemy's hand, ducks beneath a swing, disarms another with a gun snatch mid-motion, all in a single, uninterrupted shot. The camera swings with him, not to dramatize but to complement. Every movement has a counter-movement, every reaction a setup for the next beat. This isn't just fight choreography, this is rhythm. And the editing knows when to disappear, letting the body language and spatial momentum do all the talking. Overlay behind-the-scenes footage, and we see Stahelski guiding every beat. Tape on the floor, timers in hand, choreographers marking angles with laser focus. Keanu doesn't just rehearse punches, he rehearses transitions, how to pivot between enemies, when to adjust stance to fit camera frame. It's a conversation between actor and camera, where the lens becomes an extension of the fight itself. What's truly remarkable is how each opponent is choreographed not to simply lose, but to push. The enemies don't stand and wait their turn. They attack in unpredictable rhythms, forcing Wick to adapt mid-combat. This is where Stahelski's real genius shines. He builds fights with character logic. Wick doesn't win because he's invincible. He wins because he thinks, reacts, and flows like a trained assassin would. That mindset is baked into the choreography. Let us talk angles. Stahelski uses overhead shots to capture geometry. How Wick maneuvers around furniture, bodies, and blades. Side angles give us silhouette clarity. Each strike choreographed to look clean even in profile. And when the camera goes handheld, it's for a reason. To add intimacy, not confusion. Every lens choice, every dolly pull, every focus shift, it's all part of the storytelling. One iconic moment. Wick reloads mid-fight while using a glass wall as a deflection shield. A blink of realism in the chaos. No magical ammo count, no invisible invulnerability, just a man surviving by milliseconds. And it's captured not with flair, but with respect. Stahelski doesn't force you to feel tension. He builds it organically through space, sound, and choreography. As the scene escalates, we're introduced to layered threats, katanas, crossbows, body armor. Each element brings a new dynamic to the choreography, like a level in a game that keeps getting harder, but more beautiful. Wick's fighting style adjusts too. He goes from Jiu-Jitsu throws to precise gun-fu counters to pure improvised brutality. And it never looks rehearsed, even though we know it is. That's the magic. By the time the battle ends, you realize you haven't just watched a fight. You've watched a story, told not in words, but in movement. The Osaka Continental Battle isn't just a high point in Chapter 5. It is a thesis statement, a declaration of what happens when action is treated with the same reverence as dialogue, when precision meets passion, when the camera becomes a character. Because in John Wick, violence is never random. It's language, and in this scene, every frame speaks volumes. By now, we've seen John Wick shoot, strike, flip, fall, and rise again, but there's another layer to his lethality that often goes unnoticed at first glance. It's not just about what's in his hands, it's about what's around him. Because in a Chad Stahelski fight scene, the room is a battlefield, the furniture is artillery, and the floor itself is part of the choreography. This is where Stahelski's signature style reveals its true brilliance. The environment doesn't just support the action, it becomes the action. From the tight corridors of the Red Circle in Chapter 1 to the labyrinthine glass museum in Chapter 3, the John Wick franchise has always treated location as more than a backdrop. But Chapter 5 takes this philosophy to its peak. Here every wall becomes a shield, every table leg is a weapon, a flight of stairs becomes an endless gauntlet of brutality. The choreography bends around architecture like water through rock. Seamless, fluid, devastating. There is a moment in Chapter 5, blink and you will miss it, where John deflects an attacker using a bookend, transitions into a disarm using the attacker's own jacket, and finishes the sequence by launching the opponent headfirst into a marble pillar. It lasts 4 seconds, but every motion in that brief moment is intentional. That's what Stahelski does. He doesn't choreograph just movement, he choreographs space. The surroundings aren't passive, they're partners in the dance of destruction. Cut to the behind-the-scenes footage, and the genius reveals itself. Stahelski, marking locations on the floor with tape, explaining how a change in slope changes the power of a strike. Keanu, rehearsing not only where to throw a punch, but where to land a body. Training sessions include not just martial arts drills, but object improvisation. How to roll across a table and convert that momentum into a leg sweep. How to use a stair rail to redirect a fall. How to transition from grappling to striking with a nearby champagne bottle. It's not stunt work, it's spatial combat theory. And the improvisation isn't just for show. In one unforgettable moment, John Wick reaches for whatever's nearby, a broken chair leg, a fire poker, a fallen sign, and turns each into a temporary weapon. There's even a callback to the infamous pencil fight. This time reimagined not as a joke, but a brutal reality. That pencil, once a meme, is now a murder tool in a sequence that's both absurd and horrifying. It's Stahelski's way of winking at the audience while still raising the stakes. What makes this style so effective and so unique is the way it pulls us into the moment. These aren't superhuman feats, they're responses, reactions. Wick doesn't fight with unlimited tools, he fights with what's available. That creates tension. It makes each encounter unpredictable, because the weapon isn't always in his hand. Sometimes it's in the corner of the frame, a kitchen knife, a table lamp, a motorcycle helmet. All it takes is a glance, a reach, a shift in angle, and now that object is deadly. Overlay that with the text, real training, real impact. Because Stahelski demands realism, even in improvisation. His cast doesn't just memorize fight choreography, they learn how to think like fighters. What would you grab if your weapon jammed? What would you do if you were cornered near an art installation or a fish tank or a moving escalator? In Stahelski's world, that question is the choreography. The result is breathtaking. Fight scenes that feel alive, unpredictable, and deeply human. You don't watch John Wick thinking, that looked cool. You think, that looked painful, that looked possible. And most of all, that looked like it was happening right now. Because when Chad Stahelski is directing, the environment isn't silent. It speaks, it hits back, it bleeds. And in Chapter 5, that world, that dynamic, reactive, unforgiving world, is just as much a character as John Wick himself. John Wick didn't just launch a franchise, it sparked a revolution. In a world saturated with digital explosions and lifeless choreography, it reminded us what real action feels like. What began as a simple tale of revenge has become a blueprint for an entire generation of filmmakers, stunt performers, and action designers. And now, with Chapter 5, that legacy isn't just continued, it's immortalized. When you watch other films, even outside of the franchise, you can see its fingerprints everywhere. The tightly choreographed gun-fu sequences, the longer uncut takes that let the action breathe, the grounded weight behind every strike. Hollywood took notice, television followed, indie filmmakers studied it. Directors like David Leitch, Gareth Evans, and even the Russo brothers have openly cited John Wick as a turning point, a masterclass in marrying style with substance. Montage flashes, training rooms in action series that now echo Wick's aesthetic, characters in other films holding their firearms the same way, brawls in stairwells that clearly learned from Stahelski's spatial design. You start to see that Wick didn't just change choreography, it rewrote the visual grammar of action. It made fight scenes matter again, and not just to look good, but to mean something. Chapter 5 cements this legacy. It's not a greatest hits album. It's a crescendo. It blends everything that came before. The elegance of Chapter 2, the scale of Chapter 3, the darkness of Chapter 4, and elevates it. Not just as entertainment, but as a living archive of stuntcraft. From bulletproof choreography to raw emotion etched into every impact, it's a film that respects your intelligence while thrilling your senses. And maybe that's why it resonates so deeply. Because beneath the gunfire and broken bones is something deeper, a kind of cinematic discipline, a devotion to the craft of movement. Keanu Reeves doesn't just act, he trains, bleeds, learns. He becomes John Wick, not by wearing a suit, but by earning every step of the journey. And behind him, Chad Stahelski builds each scene like a fight architect, constructing chaos with mathematical precision and poetic rhythm. The best moments in Chapter 5 aren't just about the kill. They're about the pause before it. The way the camera holds its breath, the footwork that tells you more than words could. The decision to show exhaustion, not hide it. These choices are what separate John Wick from every other action franchise, because this isn't just cinema, it's choreography as storytelling, motion as mythology. Slow down the visuals now. We revisit the best stunts of Chapter 5, not just for their scale, but for their soul. The rooftop fight drenched in moonlight, the temple ambush with its echoing gunshots, the climactic fall, symbolic, brutal, and strangely beautiful. Each one is more than a set piece, it's a signature. And that's the legacy, a franchise that made action intimate again. That proved you don't need a green screen to create magic. You need movement with meaning. A director who knows the rhythm of violence, an actor who earns every bruise, and a team of artists who believe that stunts deserve as much reverence as scripts. So next time you sit down to watch Chapter 5, don't just count the kills, watch the craft. Notice the angles, the pauses, the breath between blows, because that's where the real story lives. In the discipline behind the destruction, in the choreography behind the chaos, John Wick isn't just a character, he's a legacy. And years from now, when young directors dissect the DNA of modern action, they won't be quoting dialogue. They'll be breaking down movement, frame by frame, kick by kick, wick by wick. John Wick, Chapter 5, a legacy in motion. Visual fades to black, beat of silence. Then the screen comes alive with bold white text. Like, comment, subscribe. For more breakdowns of legendary action, stay tuned, because legends never really die, they reload.